I'm Eric Parker. This morning on CT22, gas prices up over $5 a gallon in Connecticut. What will it take for them to go down? Yale energy expert Dr. Kenneth Gillingham is offering his insight on what's going on. The Travelers Championship gets underway next week. It comes at a time when some PGA pros are being lured to a new Saudi-backed golf event. Travelers Tournament Chairman Nathan Grube will join me here in Studio A. And in our Sunday Spotlight, John Leguizamo, the actor and comedian, and is the writer behind a new musical, Kiss My Aztec. It's on stage this month at Hartford Stage. We'll talk to him. It's all ahead this Sunday, June the 12th, 2022. CT22 starts right now.
From WFSB, this is CT22 with Eric Parker, sponsored by Hartford Healthcare.
Good morning. We all know the feeling. We watch gas prices continue to rise, and so many of us are wondering, why are they going up and what will it take to have them go back down? Here to give us some insight on that is Dr. Kenneth Gillingham. He's professor of economics at Yale University School of the Environment. Thank you very much for being with us. I want to just start with this. It's Sunday morning. Everybody's drinking their coffee. They want some good news. So tell us, the gas prices are going to come down, right?
I wish I could say that. Unfortunately, that's not the case.
What do we expect? It's going to get worse before it gets better?
It's going to get a little bit worse before it gets better. Unfortunately, with the summer driving season ahead of us, demand is going to be increasing, and the supply side issues don't see any sign of changing in the near future.
So tell us about some of those issues. What is it that's driving the gas prices? I mean, we know about the conflict in Ukraine. We know about some of the other factors that may be out there. Is it just a lot of things all at once? What's leading to these prices?
You know, the number one factor is the war in Ukraine. That's far and away the number one factor. Gas prices were already, creeping up beforehand, but they weren't very high before that war in Ukraine hit just a few months ago. So that's the dominant force. The sanctions prevent many banks, financial intermediaries, from taking in and dealing with Russian oil. Russian oil accounts for about 10% of the global oil supply. So you take off some fraction of that 10%, because they're still selling to some countries for sure. But you take off some fraction of that, and suddenly you're short on oil. And that brings prices up as everyone's scrambling to renegotiate their contracts and work things out.
Now, we've seen this conflict going on, unfortunately, for months now. Why are gas prices continuing to rise? Is it just taking time for it to shake down to the consumer?
It is. It's partly it takes time for it to shake down to the consumer, and partly because Europe is now talking about banning oil imports. So with actual imports being banned, and they've actually done this, although Hungary gets their exemption, if they ban their oil imports into Europe, that takes off potentially even more of the Russian oil that would have been leading to supply and keeping the prices down a little bit more.
How does that price in Europe or overseas affect what happens here? Why are they tied so closely together?
It's a remarkable question. Yeah, it's so interesting. It's a global oil market in the sense that if someone's not buying oil, so if in Europe they're not buying oil from Russia, they need to get it from somewhere else. So where do they get it from? They get it from the places from Saudi Arabia, or they'll get it from here, from the U.S. And that means there's less oil here in the U.S. available to go to our refineries and to be made into gasoline for us.
I think a lot of people look at it and think that there's some magic switch at the White House that could be flipped. I think depending on your political ideology, you may be quick to say, thanks, Joe Biden, for the high gas prices. And I've heard people say that. Is there something the White House could do or should do to give some relief maybe over the summer months?
I really wish there was an easy answer here, but regardless of your party, you're stuck if you're in the White House during a time when there's a shock like this. There are a few things they can do. One thing you could do is release some oil from the Strategic Petroleum Oil Reserve. And Biden actually did this a short time ago. But anything else that you could do is going to take some time to actually have any effect. You can open up some more land for oil leases. That'll take some time to take effect, maybe at least 6 months. So, and they are doing some of that. There's a lot of pressure on oil companies to try and drill a bit more, which is ironic coming from an administration that's really working to push on climate change. But they very much care about these high gas prices and the pain at the pump that constituents all around feel.
What about oil reserves? Is that something we saw Biden talk about that a few weeks ago? We're going to tap in a little bit to the oil reserves for temporary, but is that the problem? It's temporary?
It's temporary, and unfortunately, it's a bit of a drop in the bucket. It maybe dampens price increases a little bit, but barely. It's just such a small amount that can actually be taken from that oil reserve to affect the global market, which is so large.
If we've been talking about the macro, let's talk about the micro in a sense. We've seen some actions taken here in Connecticut. involving gas tax. There's been proposals. The Republican candidate for governor is asking to end some trucking taxes, things like that, saying these are things that could bring relief to people. From an economic standpoint, on the statewide level, is that a good idea, a bad idea? What do you think of it?
Well, it does bring relief. There's no question about that. But there are many different ways in which you could be compensating people and helping them. And one of the parts that feels uncomfortable about the gas tax relief is it's really rewarding people who have very inefficient cars. And it prevents people from having the incentive to get other cars. So there are other ways that the government could find ways to make sure that those who are hit really hard, regardless of whether they have a gas guzzler or not, could actually receive some type of compensation.
Is that part of the problem here, is that it is conflicting priorities? Because you could say we want to get people into more fuel-efficient cars, but that's going to be a slow fix. You talk about gas pipelines or drilling, that's a slow fix. No matter really how you come at it, nothing's quick.
That's exactly right. And that's the really hard part about these high gas prices right now, especially coming into the summer driving season. There's just very little that we can do in the short term. But people are beginning to respond. Maybe they may not be happy about this response, but they are beginning to switch cars and use the more efficient car a little bit more, rethink some travel, although not very much, because I think all of us are ready to travel after several years of COVID. But there are reactions that are happening, and those reactions do tend to reduce demand a little bit.
And you say there is going to be a threshold price where people are just really going to change dramatically in their behavior.
Yeah, there are actually several thresholds. So above $4, people already start changing their behavior. Above $5, they really start changing it even more, and then above $6. And there is a possibility that gas prices could get up to $6 per gallon over the summer driving season, even here in Connecticut.
Well, that's going to be my next question is, where does it stop? Is there any way to know? Because we're seeing right now, depending on where you go fill up in Connecticut, you're already over $5 a gallon. Some places a little below, some places a little above, and the price is, of course, fluctuating. $6, $7? Is there some way, as an expert economically, to say it's going to go up, but it's never going to pass this?
Gosh, I wish I could say that. We certainly, none of us want $7 per gallon gasoline. But we can't really say that. I will say, though, that it's unlikely it's going to go up too much more, especially once we pass the summer driving season, when we get back down into the fall and get back to normal driving usage. Partly because a lot of the main factors with the war in Ukraine, with the sanctions and all else, those have all been priced into the market already. So it takes a little bit of time for that pricing into the market to happen, but then once it's in there, it's already in there. And if we have peace in Ukraine, you should expect to see gasoline prices drop. Maybe not right away, but very, very quickly. If we start to end some of the sanctions on Russia, that would happen in the same way. So there's hope. There are reasons to believe that prices could come back down. But unfortunately, I wish I could say it's true, but it's not going to be happening in the next few months. All
right, we tried to start with good news. We tried to end with good news, but unfortunately, you're not in the good news business right now. We appreciate you coming in. We'll have you back when the news is better, I promise. Kenneth Gillingham, professor of economics at Yale University School of the Environment. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much.